find him, maybe we find your girlfriend.
Kitana is not my girlfriend. She may help us, remember?
So what do we do?
This is what Raiden was talking about. If we defeat Reptile, Shang Tsung will be that much weaker.
No, I will defeat Reptile. You can watch. That is what Raiden was talking about.
Oh man, I love the the random shit talking in this game. It's so great. But hey everyone, welcome back with Emmac, where today we are gonna continue our playthrough of Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks, and of course we're doing this special playthrough with Baraka. You know, he's usually an unplayable character. Usually only playable in the versus mode, and you know, we use some patch codes or GameShark codes, whatever you want to call them. We use some codes in order to make him playable in this game, and you know, obviously he doesn't have Multalities, he doesn't have Fatalities or anything like that. So you know, when it comes to that, you know, you just have to. There's a special code that allows me to essentially change who the player 2 character is to anybody I want, and somehow you know, make it to where the code allows me to switch between both characters at will. You know, like you know, for example, jeez, I forget who I'm even playing as in the player 2 slot, but you know, one of the 4 main characters, obviously. So either Sub-Zero, Scorpion, Kung Lao, or Liu Kang. It's probably Kung Lao, I'm gonna guess. Anyway, so you know, I can just switch to Liu Kang's movesets while still playing as Baraka at will, and because of that, I can use his Brutality and his Multalities whenever you know, those sections in the game come up to where I have to do that to continue, and that's how we work here. And of course, I am, you know, gonna include all the codes that you would need into the description below. And yeah, it's just a way to play as any character you want in the game, including the ones who are, you know, Ermac, like the boss characters that really only have like 5 moves because they don't have any like actual proper moves assigned to them. But you know, I already did a playthrough with Smoke, for example, who literally has no moves other than just stand there and emit smoke. It's actually a move of his, so it sucks that unfortunately you cannot. He's not always emitting smoke just as a thing. It's a move for some reason, an idle stance. Either way, the point is you know, as I've mentioned, this code gives you the ability to play as anyone you want. And so I'm playing as Baraka now, and I've done all the versus mode, or I should say I'm going to do all the versus mode characters and whatnot. And I was thinking of doing an Ermac playthrough, but you know, I did that as like a test run before I even did any of this stuff. I think the video is on the channel here still. So you know, I don't know, it's a cool concept, but it'd be cool if you could assign Ermac actual fighting styles while maintaining a special moves or something like that, which I don't know how to hack or anything like that. I'm just using codes by other people, you know, and all the videos and all, you know, links to all the other characters you can play as, and you know, codes and stuff, and the person that I learned these codes from, they're all in the description down below. So for the love of God, please do not ask me in the comments, which it could happen. I mean, people, that's just how people are. I'm not really a big YouTuber or anything like that, but I still can't count how many times people, you know, for like games or mods or something like that, like ask me how to set it up or something like that. And in the video I say, yeah, I don't really know how to do this or how to tell you how to do it, but all the stuff is in the description below, and people are still asking me how you do it and stuff like that. Which, I mean, it's kind of annoying, but like it's also just kind of funny in a way, so. But all the stuff you will need is in the description below and stuff. Whoa, that was a weird screen effect there a second ago. But yeah, my intention is to finish with all the versus mode characters. I've done Smoke, so I'm gonna do essentially what's gonna be a Sub-Zero playthrough, but I'm gonna do it with as you know, Noob as my skin and stuff, and the actual Noob Cybot character model, not the player 2 model. That's you know, in versus mode for Sub-Zero. That also has like the friggin' Cryromancer you know, gloves on there. Like, I think that was just kind of really annoying they did that in the game, which I can get to a degree, but I don't know, it's just weird. Because it was a really cool costume otherwise, you know. One thing too, I always wanted to figure out how you can play. I even asked the guy I got the code from if you can play as the player 2 costumes, just add some variety to these characters, but unfortunately it's not as simple as like the player 2 costumes being like, you know, a character code for some reason. And that kind of sucks, because I would have loved to play as some of the alternate costumes, you know, halfway through the story, maybe mix up Baraka's colors to his blue player 2 colors. That'd be kind of cool. I think Liu Kang has blue colors in this game. Kung Lao has like the yellow that he had from like MK3, I believe. Or maybe it was red. I can't remember. It would be weird if it was red, but I remember like there was a game where like, and for some reason instead of using his classic yellow from MK3, they gave him his red colors, and it may have been this game. And it's just, I don't know, that's kind of lame to me, especially since red and blue are always like the same colors they always use. Scorpion has like his usual orange colors and stuff like that, but they got pretty creative with some, you know. I think it's really cool they have the, like I said, they have essentially the Noob Saibot for Sub-Zero costume as his player 2, and for Reptile, like he just has like a half human attire. Like it's just kind of like a normal skin tone color thing, but you know, the fact they went through the effort for that, you know, I thought was pretty cool. But I think that's about it for as far as like the cool color costumes. I can't remember what Katana's was, to be honest with you. It was probably something generic like red. Maybe it was like a, would have been cool if it was like a Melina costume or something like that, but I don't think that it was. May even just be like a different shade of blue, because for some reason they love doing that. Like if it has like the other characters in the game, I get that, but I don't know. I always thought it was a little lame that they kind of do that kind of stuff, where you know, I feel like they could get more creative with the colors, but and you can barely tell like which color is which. I feel like in the classic games, for like, you know, you had the normal Sub-Zero color, and then you just had the slightly brighter, the slightly darker, or something like that. But I don't know. That's just me. But as you can see, we're using Kung Lao's movesets now, and I'm getting my butt smacked here, my cheeks pressed together, but hey, it is what it is. We'll get there, you know, we just keep going. And I would like to continue with the question of the day here. You know, I've been doing it with this series, and my question of the day today is, what do you guys think is the coolest fighting game stage ever? It could be Mortal Kombat, it could be Street Fighter, it could be Fatal Fury, it could be freaking Tekken, you know, it could even just be some, you know, one-off fighting game or something like that, you know, like, you know, from the 90s or something like that. You know, Battle Arena Toshinden, I think, had some cool stages. They weren't always complete though, for some reason. Like, some were blatantly missing textures in places. But you know, I thought they had some cool ideas for stages. You know, fighting on like a waterfall, or you know, in like a big ring in like a castle or like a cave and stuff like that. You know, they had some. I think one was Stonehenge, so they had some cool stages there. Street Fighter stages, you know, I think obviously they had some really creative stages in the early games especially, and they had a lot going on in the backgrounds. So I'm not really sure about Fatal Fury things. I never played those games, but even Marvel's Capcom, you know, I think that was had some cool stages in there too, like the Daily Bugle. But I think Mortal Kombat overall probably definitely has my favorite stages, just because they really go in, especially. See, I hate to be a negative Nancy when it comes to this stuff, because I feel like I do talk a lot of crap about the modern games, but I feel like the truth is one thing that I just can't ever look at and say, like, okay, like, I feel like this is pretty much objective fact, almost, and I don't usually say that kind of stuff, because everybody has their own opinions, and that's cool, and they have a right to it, You know, I might not always be the biggest fan of the stories or the new characters or something that come out, but I feel like the stages in these new Mortal Kombat games, you know, they usually have like 1 or 2 good stages in there, whatever, that are new and cool and stuff like that. But man, it just feels like they lost their creativity with those stages, and I don't know if it's because you know, like it's all about, they want to have like just basic set pieces for a story and their story modes, or if it's just, you know, maybe it was I would say John Tobias. Oh jeez, of course, this is gonna be a pain in the ass. But maybe it's Tobias, you know, he was the one who was like a major stage designer, or whoever it was just isn't there anymore, and that's why. But you know, obviously, I mean, it has some of the most iconic stages of all time. You know, the pit, very simple but really iconic stage from the first game. I really love the Warrior Shrine, even though it just, they always have it in like the games now, but like it's not a playable stage for some reason. It's even in Shaolin Monks as like a bonus area stage for like boss rush mode, and for I don't think it was in versus mode, but obviously, you know, you fight Ermac there in this game too. And you know, that's just the first game. The second game was when they really started cooking. You know, the Living Forest, where we are right now, iconic stage, looks good in 2D and 3D. It's very simple. It's just literally a forest with faces on trees and some guy just poking his head out behind them, but really awesome. You know, super cool, iconic. Obviously, the trees eat people too, and you know, that's pretty hardcore, as they say. Of course, you know, they also have you know, pretty much almost any of them in MK2 were great. You know, the Deadpool was an awesome stage. You know, hitting people in the acid. You know, the Combat Tomb was pretty simple. I don't think it's everybody's favorite from the second game, but it's definitely come back a few times, and you know, that's what we're gonna have next level. Is what it's gonna be based off of, and it's just really cool. And you know, I feel like I've gushed a lot about the stages of MK2 and how well they used them in Shaolin Monks and stuff, so I'll move on from that. But yeah, I mean, even in the 3D era, you know, there were some somewhat basic stages that I kind of really did like for one reason or another. You know, let's look at MK Deception, for example. You know, I think the Slaughterhouse is a really cool stage, and just, you know, kind of a really good Mortal Kombat stage because all the death traps. Of course, you know, I think Shang Tsung's Palace and stuff like that was really cool in Deadly Alliance. MK4 had a lot of really cool stages, I feel like, too. You know, that Elder God's chamber with all the faces, just making dudes, the Elder God just making weird faces as you're fighting and stuff the whole time. Yeah, that was a good one. Then there's, of course, the Yin Yang Island from MK Deception. I think was a really cool concept that I think would be awesome if they brought it back. You know, just kind of a cool, like, strange transition. You know, going from day where it's nice and peaceful, and then going to nighttime where things get dangerous and you can get eaten by sharks if you get hit with the death trap. Really cool, unique stage idea. I feel like that people I feel like sleep on. You know, Armageddon had some good ones. I really liked, I think it was just called Meteor Storm. And I think the coolness factor on that one is that I feel like it's not really explicitly stated, but like it seemed like it was almost connected to like the pit too in a way. And I don't know, I just thought that was cool that it had the connection to the stage. And I think it has probably my favorite battle theme of any Mortal Kombat stage in that level as well. Reptile's Lair is really cool in that game as well, even though that, you know, technically started in MK4. But yeah, I mean, I just feel like you know, the stages are just kind of very generic set pieces these days, you know, with one or two really cool ones. You know, like I like the tournament stage from MK11, where, you know, you're kind of on like this, I think it's like a stage or something like that, or there's a big projector. It's like just classic MK stages and stuff like that, projected in the background. It's kind of cool and funny. There's also like the place where you fight Chronica is pretty cool, and how it changes in the different eras. You know, the prehistoric one and You know, even before time, I think it's like the last stage, and you're kind of on that bridge. So they have some cool ideas. It's just, you know, then they have like very generic ones like jungle and like a pier and stuff like that. I mean, the pier was kind of cool because like the bodies came up, but this wasn't the same. And I feel like, especially after MK9, you know, like stage fatalities, you know, they went away in Deadly Alliance, and let's be honest, that just fucking sucked. And it really sucked in MK4 when they went away for the most part. You know, we just had the only one that was really cool was just the Tikkun in prison, right? Because you picked him up and you threw him in the fan, and that was pretty cool. It took a lot of time for some reason, but you know, they dragged it out for sure. But it was still like a pretty cool fatality. All right, you know, big fan. That's pretty cool. That's new. That's awesome. Takes advantage of the 3D environment as well when you think about it, because you're swinging them around the room. And then, yeah, I mean, they just, the whole uppercut into the spikes thing in Goro's lair was kind of just really dumb, I feel like, because they never did that before or since. Yeah, it just kind of didn't work for me. And the fact that those are the only 2 stage fatalities was really lame to me. Nothing in Deadly Alliance, despite the fact they literally had like an acid bath level that you fought in and everything like that. And it was cool that they had like those statues spitting the acid at you if you got too close. That was cool. And then in Deception, they did you know, the best thing, you know, next best thing. You know, big 3D environments, but you can't really do stage fatalities in the same way. So what do? You just have interactable death traps, and I really thought that was awesome. So you know, obviously, I mean, the lower mines was really cool, and I like that some stages had more than one stage fatality, or death trap, I should say. You know, that was really cool, and it just kind of added an extra layer to the strategy too when you think about it. On top of that too, oh geez, what was I gonna say about that? I'm forgetting what I'm talking about here, but it was, I feel like, you know, it was really, in Deadly Alliance, the stages I felt were kind of limited in scope and size. But I feel like in Deception and Armageddon, some of the arenas were freaking gigantic. And I feel like that's just another underrated element to people who are not fans of the 3D era and stuff like that. And, you know, just, they kind of sleep on, in my opinion. You know, the Bell Tower in Armageddon was gigantic. You had the upper level where, you know, you go around in a big circle, then you hit them in the down below, and there was like 10 different bells you could smack people off of, and the lower level, and then you can uppercut them in the center, and they, you know, do that awesome animation where they bump up against the freaking bell and clear the bats out. That was awesome. Reptile's Lair was a massive stage. Khan's Arena, I think it was just called the Battle Arena in that game for some reason. You know, you had the 4 unique, you know, death traps as well as it just being a massive stage, like I said, once again. So, I mean, just lots of creativity. Lower Mines was a huge stage. Hell's Foundry was a huge stage. The Nether Ship Interior was a gigantic stage. So, I mean, I feel like they really got really creative, and I don't know, I feel like people don't give them enough credit during that era of, like, you know, how great the arenas were and stuff like that. But I don't know, that's just me. I don't even think this whole time I've been talking about these arenas, and I don't even think that I've even said what my favorite fighting game stage was. But yeah, I think the Warrior, I'll just throw out a few. You know, Mortal Kombat, like I said, has my favorite, so the Warrior Shrine's definitely up there. I just always thought it was a really cool stage, even if it is kind of basic. But, you know, I think that's a pretty cool area. The Pit 1, iconic. Let's see, what else is there? Like I said, Meteor Storm from Armageddon is really cool. And it's kind of growing on me a little bit. Probably not my favorite, but I just figured I'd mention it because I'm talking about giant stages again. I think it was the, I can't even remember what it's called, but it's like in Armageddon, there's like this level where it's just a looping staircase, and then, you know, it has like a secret death trap fatality too that you can get after you, I think you go down 1 or 2 sets of stairs. But yeah, it's I think it's like it's Outworld something. But like it's just you keep fighting down staircases and you can keep it whoops. You know, and that was something that Armageddon did pretty well, was like they had some looping stages like hell, and you know, the subway was also pretty gigantic. Ooh, that's a weird effect on the Tarkatan warrior. I was kind of hoping he looked all right in the last scene, but I was kind of hoping he was just gonna be my partner this whole game.
Trust your instincts, Kung Lao.
But we might have to change it, to be honest.
Your ancestors will guide
But yeah, so like they had really cool looping stages, and it was just funny. You could continuously knock people down, and you know, the Outworld staircase level and stuff like that, and just keep hitting them down the stairs. But I don't know, like I said, it was just fun. I feel like the 3D era was just kind of fun, in my opinion. You know, people didn't take it as seriously. And, you know, obviously, you know, I mean, people are entitled to their opinion. Like I said, it's my favorite era, but obviously I can understand, you know, I'm not a competitive gamer, so